Bravo. Really, really beautiful. So sensitive and such a great conception of this whole piece. I mean, it doesn't get more beautiful than this, right? That's wonderful. I mean, there's so many small little details, and so, you know, every single note, every single phrase, every single motion is so important in this. And I find just one little criticism that I had, that very often when Beethoven writes a line, a phrase that goes against the beats, sometimes I still feel the downbeats too much, or when the rhythm of the melody, sometimes you have a longer note on a downbeat, then I find that it's your job to kind of move us along that, and not let us be again bound by gravity. You know, he's trying in a very romantic way. I mean, there's some phrasing that they look just like straight out of Chopin, you know, starting from the note before of the beat and going over, and that's what it's worth fighting for. And very often it makes it very difficult because of the rhythmic structure of the line as well. Do you want to start at the beginning? Let's see if I have the beat before. I mean, is it our job to show that, or should it just happen? So see how he writes. Sorry, he writes from here. Right? That the slur is until there. We're humanly conditioned to go until there, right? But he's telling you it's not just about articulation, but there's one slur until there. And then you have a staccato, and then a two-note slur. It's really trying so much to be not regular. Yeah. So how would you shape that if really your last note of that is here? Is that? The type of rubato, the type of motion that you're having would have to be different than if you were going there. So can you try it again? And imagine that it's really, you know, you have to breathe through this phrase from the first note until the last one. How would you shape that? Where would you move? Where would you? That's already better. If I felt a little bit compressed with time because you grew so much here that you didn't have enough to come down. Try to shift a little bit. So that gives you that kind of shape. You know, if this is the end of the phrase, imagine the middle, that's kind of a slightly the high point. It's all very subtle. Mm-hmm. Then it allows you to end this really at the end of the breath, and then require the lift that he asks for. Yeah, it won't sound like a superimposed articulation. Also, at the beginning, to me, it's a little bit too defined. You know what great singers or flute players, wind players do? It's quite interesting. You know, you breathe before, and you don't, like thinking about flute, you don't release on the first note, but you start breathing out right before, so that you lose the attack. And I don't know, this shouldn't work on the piano, but somehow it does, because if the timing changes, if you start breathe out a little bit earlier, then. Rather than, but do it physically, really. Breathe in, deep breath, and then breathe out just a second from your nose before the note, and then that's it. Okay, this is the other trap here. You have this upward gesture, which opens. We did very well. And then you have another one, still in the crescendo, but it's a longer phrase. till there, right? The danger is that the rhythm in the left hand stops with a chord here. But the phrase continues. In the crescendo, nevertheless. Yes? So be extremely careful when you're in the middle of the phrase and the rhythm stops as well, to somehow keep it going. A lot of our job is kind of, again, this time is fighting gravity. It's not physical gravity, but the phrase wants to do this, and the composer is saying, no, just keep going. And this is just another spot where I think if you think of that, the shape and direction and rubato will be different. So this is not really an arrival, not only because it's really in the middle of the phrase, but it's within the crescendo as well. So something is telling Beethoven there's something more to this. Let's try from there. And then, sorry, you have two of the same notes as a completely different gesture. This is the end of a two-note phrase opening up, and this is the beginning of something new. So the type of sound and attack of the first G and this, whatever, don't copy what I'm doing. I don't even play this piece, but the intention has to be very different. Nice. And then now it complicates things a little bit more because you have this beautiful line which you did with the left hand well, and the right hand, there's something else. That's kind of an appendix. It's something, a different character. That is not related in phrase-wise with what the left hand is doing, because you're still going. Right? But kind of takes over the end of the phrase of the left hand and presents you with something very gentle and beautiful. Yeah? So that kind of color and sound can be very, very different. So let's start from the beginning here. Nice. So two things for me now. You lost a bit the intention of the crescendo. He didn't have to write a crescendo if the phrase naturally goes up and down, right? So from here, there's something that becomes more intense. So the timing has to be affected as well. Make sure that this doesn't roll off too easily. And here, three notes on the same phrase, not. That's one of the most difficult things to do when the rhythm tells you. But and then, if you do that clearly enough, then this little appendix here will have a different purpose, a different color altogether. Try it one last time. Yes. Physically, technically also, you're doing. Don't replicate the same motion. I'm thinking more and more now about the gesture that we use, and sometimes to find a gesture that does not go against, you can, in theory, you can play the piano in any way you want, and have whatever sound you want, but find a gesture that goes with the shape and the music. So if this, that's going to sound the same, no matter how much. You trying to continue, right? So don't close it the same way. And just the fact that you're preparing that gesture differently will give you a different time and a different sound. So it becomes, your musical choices become physical as well. That's very good. Now listen for the harmonic progressions, the implied ones, you know. You have... as well. So feel that chord that you're not playing because of a tie, and you'll see that you'll need a little more time on that beat. One last time, I promise. But I really like the beginning now. How I think personally that if you try to almost really consciously not to go to that, then that'll give you much more space for this and to set up that phrase. It's all very small little subtleties, I think. I mean, to me that feels just, I don't know, there's a difference. Yeah. Now it's easier when you have other notes, because that you can shape those notes in the way that you want to do. Do you want to go on? There's just few details. Let's continue. Yeah. Yes, so that's nice to bring out that a little bit, but it also stops you from using the left hand as a line, to shape the music with, because now you're using 3 notes a bar and not 6. And the difference here is that you have much longer phrase in the left hand. Try it again, and try to control the motion of the line with each note in the left hand. Yeah, play just the left hand itself, and feel the intervals between the top note and the bottom as well. Yeah, I feel that fifth finger sometimes is sounding a bit like an accompaniment to. Yes, try once without pedal. Yeah, to me that has so much more control and rhythm, and meaning to it. So try with as little pedal as you need, but make sure it doesn't become a rhythmic feature. That's it. Nice. And now for the same idea that we had at the beginning, where the phrase doesn't necessarily follow what's implied by the harmony, but it goes an extra 2 beats. So how would you shape that if you start from here to here? Just play it again, just the left hand. Yeah, let's try with both now. Both hands. That is second time. Yeah. Try it again. Very, very good. So see how this mirrors the first phrase, except there's so much more, so many more dissonances, the intervals, and so much more expression here. There's a lot going on, and I think all it needs, it's time to speak and to be expressive. So don't feel like you're in a hurry in between the notes here. And for me, this comes from that. That's why I was insisting not to make it sound just, bringing out the upper note, but each note is very. Be very careful with the pedal on a trill, because in most music, but especially in Beethoven, in these subtle pieces, a trill is a way to have more notes to create expression. So if you just trill, it's a set speed, and with the pedal on becomes a color. But be conscious of every single note of the trill in places like. You can vary the speed of the trill and be as creative as possible. Try again. Crescendo. Yes, there's a different here in phrase structure. First time you have, right? It continues there in here. So make that very, very clear that this is interrupted. There is a jump down. It doesn't fall down easily, but start something new. So if you use the analogy of a singer or of a wind player, that's a new breath. It's a new sound. And it's so incredibly expressive here. So in a way, I mean, to make this, just to clarify things, look at what's irregular and how can you explain to us as an audience. You know, we should be able to hear your performance and draw these shapes. And at the end, it's the most imaginative type of writing, and it will sound completely fresh, and all you're doing is just showing what's there. Let's try one last time. And you really use all your breath, imagination, create the space. Look, 1 bar and a half, then 2 bars here, and then 1 little bar of la separately. Yes, and again, try to use fingering and gesture that help you with that. If you do, if you do that goes exactly with what we expect, which is not. He even writes a diminuendo there. It goes against the line. We want that, right? But he asks you something else, and then. That's gone. So do you see how different this is? This is a balance. It's almost as predictable as possible. You have. as a contrast to that. And keep it really as simple as possible until here. And then now you start having something else. The same gesture, but in a different context. So play from here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Very simple. Don't anticipate what's incredibly special, what's coming up. But this is melodic, right? So if you have so when I was saying before, you know, when the phrase goes against the rhythm of the phrase itself, this is an example. We want that's what the rhythm is doing, right? But it is asking, si, la, si, then re, not. That's it. Now long. Okay, now can you play just by yourself without me? It almost feels like you know, a bow in a string instrument, you know. But it's all very subtle. I mean, it shouldn't be exaggerated. Let's try. Can you try as close to tempo as possible? Because I think he's trying to find something. And when he says il stesso tempo, and then he has the exact same gesture, but with a hairpin, which here justifies a little more time. Yeah. So I think the straighter and the more simple these 4 bars are, because you already been moving a lot before, and it's going to be a lot more. So you're kind of anticipating what's happening. Just open, straightforward, and simple. This finally you have 3 beats with 1 slur, you know, from the first to the third. That hasn't happened yet. Three, 4. So the biggest difference should be between and is shifting that, but that the shape of la, fa, si, la, and that's different. Yeah, in sound, in intention, in shape, in dynamic. You have a crescendo as well and a diminuendo, but not in tempo somehow, as much as you can. But let's try from here. That's it. So it's already, the rhythm is getting faster from 2 to 3, 4, and then eventually will become a cadenza, right? So don't squeeze the 3, actually kind of try to stretch them to be as closely related to the 2 as possible, and then the 4 to the 3, so that the change is more gradual. This needs to make it an extra bar, yeah? So it's kind of taking small little breaths. Then. So you need a little more push to get you to this bar at least, and not just here. For that to happen, you need a breath also somewhere. Yeah. And here I think is where you really can use every note of the trill. So don't rush the trill. You have more time. Imagine you've been pushing and moving quite a bit. Then here you have crescendo and diminuendo and a fermata on it. So you really have, and a molto tenuto. He wants you to stay on that trill and do something with it. Let's start from here. Can you sustain the melody throughout the jumps here? Yes, be careful how you play your thumb. If your thumb is, you're playing these fingers kind of vertically here and your thumb is low, that's going to be very hard to match. Yes, so that you can transfer the weight up and down throughout the melody. Yes, what if you were playing? How would you go to the E? Yeah, so now you go to the thumb, but it's same now to the B. Even more, yeah. And every note of the trill, not just first, but and you know, a trill can get more intense by getting faster or can get more intense by getting slower as well. That's up to you what to do with it. But yes, that's it. So don't stop on the D, right? Can you try it now without pedal, unless it's whenever it's every note of the trill. Yes, especially be careful the connections. Yeah, so think of the last 3-4 notes of the trill and how. That's it. Because at the end, you know, at the end of the day, the chords are just. What's expressed is how Beethoven gets you from one to the other. So the last few notes. Are really what are more crucial. Shall we go to the next? We don't have so much time, but I thought for me, at least in here, I lost a little bit of energy because of the pedal in this. There's not enough chords or harmonic context to make it clear, so you have to clarify it as much as possible, also with time. Try it from here. Yes, so imagine you don't know this piece. You're going, okay, and maybe G minor. There's quite something, in a subtle way, something quite dramatic that happens right at the beginning. So you cannot play this the same as this in terms of intensity, but also timing. He's not giving us the chords, so you have to help us there. Okay, good. But don't think of the E flat as an arrival, but it's just raising. We're back. And then we get to the dominant. Almost, you know, it's a good exercise. Play a little bit slowly, and feel here in your head the chords. How would you play if you had chords under? I see that this is quite crucial here, which seems nothing, you know, because it brings you to the... Yes, to me it's more important, sorry, not this, but... That's it. Okay, now without accents though. Even here, sorry. You don't need that. Very good. Okay, and can this be a completely unrelated, different sound, but also not inexpressive? So you have... There's still a shape. Okay, now in one shot, in one line. I know you have the other G held, but that shouldn't stop the line. It's something extra. Nice. And how does the top voice and the left hand, how are they different? You have hands there. It comes down. That separation, so they don't go up and down the same, but it's this. That gives you enough space for this. That's it. Yes. How closely can you do that in time? Yes, really as if somebody else was playing that. Okay, and there's, to me, I mean, there's no crescendo or anything, but there's a huge sense of optimism here. So don't rush that. Make sure that, you know what we said, that the texture opened up before, here? Here is even more. This is a humongously long line. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars. So take the breath and also the sound to last all the way there. Because if you start with the same type of sound that you had here, it's not going to make it until the end. And this is a completely different world, different sound. I mean, he writes cantabile. Take kind of pragmatically, really think of what type of technique and color and sound you have before here, and make it as different as possible. So, whatever it is, it's not just in your imagination, but also physically. If you're kind of close here, use a larger motion, larger muscle, anything. Yeah, but let it get to the piano. You did the large gesture, and then you arrived here, and you played it like this, yeah? No, I mean, it's easy to see, but it's so hard to do, I know. And cantabile, think of this to me as, there's so much mystery, and this is more upfront and open. Very, very simple, and simplicity is given by also by clear tone, not by just a soft one. But you haven't had that type of sound since the beginning of the piece, yeah? Just a kind of a cantabile. Okay, and to give attention to that beautiful cantabile melody, I would keep the left hand more hidden and maybe less staccato. Because as soon as you articulate it more, our ear and attention goes there immediately. So. No crescendo. Yes. How about trust Beethoven? He's creating, there's always a reason. Why does he have these 4 bars of completely simple, upfront, almost, naive way? Then there's a crescendo, and then it doesn't finish. You don't need to add a ritardando. There has to be something frightening there, and it's given by the fact that he's cutting off the line. If you, this becomes normal, yeah? And then it becomes incredibly wild. Try just one last thing. Try that. Look careful, long line. Yes, you can do it very well. Be careful of the gesture that you use. If you do, then. That's it. No crescendo. Yes. So if you're doing in tempo, even bigger diminuendo, make sure that the voicing is still cleared. If the top disappears, then there's no clarity. From here.
Sorry, habit.
Yes, and get this character from the downbeat. Otherwise, you'll be late and it sounds almost like a downbeat. Okay. This has to sound almost mad, tiridam, tiridam. We're not expecting this, yeah. So the intention, the sound, and the energy of it has really to shock us a bit more. Okay, I think we need to move on. Sorry, but no.